Racial injustice has a long-standing history in America. From the founding of the United States as a country until 1865, white Americans used the transatlantic slave trade to own black people as slaves who were not privy to any human rights. The history of traumatic domination of black people in America by white Americans is also evidenced by post-slavery lynchings, the state-sanctioned resistance to civil rights for black people, police brutality that is continuously disproportionately directed at black people, and the continued racial discrimination of present moments. Even after the abolishment of slavery, Jim Crow laws prohibited black Americans from participating in the economy in the same ways that white Americans were able to. Although America has a history of racial injustice, it also shows a strong history of black-white allyship against racial injustice. Many white Americans hold and have internalized egalitarian values and goals and wish to participate with black people as allies against racial prejudice. White allyship continued during the Civil Rights Movement with the Freedom Riders. The Freedom Riders were civil rights activists who rode interstate buses into the segregated southern states in 1961 and subsequent years to challenge the non-enforcement of the United States Supreme Court decisions Morgan versus Virginia and Boynton versus Virginia, which ruled that segregated public buses were unconstitutional. The southern states had ignored these rulings, and the federal government did nothing to enforce them. Even though racial segregation was constitutionally outlawed in 1955, the Interstate Commerce Commission decided not to enforce the ruling that allowed for black people to be able to use the same public transportation as white people. Because of this, Jim Crow laws of segregation remained in force throughout the South. The Freedom Riders were black and white Americans who challenged this illegal segregationist status quo. They did this by riding interstate buses in the South in mixed racial groups to challenge local laws or customs that enforce segregation and seating. The Freedom Riders and the violent reactions they provoked bolstered the credibility of the American Civil Rights Movement. They called national attention to the fact that anti-racist federal laws were being disregarded by state officials and the local violence that was being used by police and KKK members to terrify black people and their allies and enforce segregation in the South. Police arrested riders for trespassing, unlawful assembly, violating state and local Jim Crow laws, and other alleged offenses. But often, they first let white mobs attack them without intervention. Although discrimination continues to be a problem in America, the efforts of black and white Americans working together to challenge racism continue to remind us of the sacrifices made by black and white Americans who are willing to stand up for the civil rights of all Americans.